but in you. Then the liberty in Eden will never die. Never.
You knew you were going to be hit.
What?
You knew you were going to be hit, didn't you?
It's a foolish thing to do, Jody. I hope you realize that.
Did Chad Sutherland give you that arrow-proof dress?
He gave it to me because he said it would help make the prophecy come true.
Him and his damned prophecy.
So was the archer in on this, was he?
Yeah. He hired an expert.
I don't care. It was a terribly dangerous thing to do.
Renaldo, what about him? Did he all of a sudden decide he was going to help you and Chad? Why?
Well, Renaldo, I'm not really sure about. I think Chad helped change his mind.
But you didn't change your mind, did you? You were determined to go through with this martyr business.
Gavin, this is what I came up here to do. I had to go through it.
I know, but we thought it was all over, that you had given up this idea completely, and then all of a sudden, there you were.
I agree with Nicole and Gavin. You were a fool to do what you did. But by God, you were terrific. That's the best speech I've heard in years.
That was the least boring speech I can remember. You had me hanging on every word.
For Loomis's funeral. The florist insisted that I send some kind of a card, so I did.
You didn't use my name?
No, I didn't. I said that it was from a friend.
No, that's okay.
I thought about adding something nasty like, say hello to everybody down there.
You didn't like that guy, Lois, did you, huh?
I hated that guy. I thought he was slimy.
He was just stupid, that's all. Just plain stupid. Here's a guy with a terrific job, working with the cops, in the police department. A guy like that could have made a fortune working with a guy like me, right? Everything I gave him to do, he blew it. Every job I gave him.
Well, he'll have a lot of explaining to do when he gets where he's going. Are you leaving early today?
That's right. I'm going home, I'm going to get drunk, and I'm going to forget all about my troubles.
You know what I think, Eddie?
What's that?
I think that you ought to break it off with these guys. I mean, you don't need these international headaches.
No kidding. I don't even need the local headaches. What are you talking about?
Well, then why don't you go into something simple and easy, like the numbers?
First of all, the numbers racket in this town are all sewed up, like everything else in this town. The casinos, the bootleg cigarettes, everything is sewed up. What I got to do is I got to come up with a whole new racket. You understand?
Hey, can you patent something like that?
You're cute. You know you're cute? Get out of here. You get on my nerves. You want to get out of here?
I'm going.
Go.
Excuse me.
What is this? I thought you were supposed to be up at that castle playing Robin in the Seven Dwarfs.
Went wrong, Eddie. All of it.
What are you talking about? This morning you told me everything was terrific.
That was this morning.
Jody Travis, right? You wound up killing Jody Travis and they caught you at it. Is that what happened?
Where's the nut?
I told you to stay away from that girl. Didn't I tell you that? You made a mess out of this thing. It's your fault.
Eddie, you would have gone perfect. She already disappeared. I was going to make her for keeps.
And what happened?
The boyfriend of ours got in the way. Both boyfriends. I shot one.
That's terrific. That's absolutely terrific. Jody Travis is our big problem. And what do? You shoot the boyfriend. That's brilliant. The cops. The cops are after you. Did they follow you here?
It's going to be more than the cops. The kid I shot was Chad Sutherland, the president's son. It's going to be the whole militia. Eddie got to square things for me.
Oh, me? Me? What, are you crazy or what?
Eddie, I did it for the company. You got to owe me. You owe me.
No, don't give me this company stuff. You dumb slob, you just blew my company right out of the water. This is your problem. You solve it.
Very nice, Eddie.
Hey, I told you to stay away from the girl. Didn't I tell you that? Did I tell you to ventilate the president's son? I didn't tell you to ventilate him, did I? It's your problem. You take care of it. I'm going home, champ. You pull a gun on me, Jim?
You can help me another way.
What's that?
If you ain't going to square for me, I got to get out of town. I got to get a long way out of town. I need a lot of coffee.
Oh, come on, Joe. I've heard that song 1,000 times.
Empty the safe.
The safe is empty. I gave the money to Troy Bannister to buy a car to get out of here.
I ain't talking about the petty cash. I'm talking about the safe you got downtown at the salvage company.
Oh, no way, Joe. No way.
I get nervous. get nervous, my hands get sweaty. Slippery fingers, you know what I mean?
Poppy, how you doing?
Hi. Please don't hang around here, Damian. Eddie hasn't left yet.
Oh, good. I'd like to talk to him.
Well, not now. It's a bad time.
Well, it's a good time for me. I've got Troy Bannister in custody. I think Eddie should know about it.
Well, he's not an employee anymore. You see, Eddie told me to wipe him off the payroll.
Oh, really? Eddie doesn't like to have bad guys working for him. That's very civic-minded of him.
I'm leaving for the... Kyle, he's got a gun! Watch out! Hold it!
No, at first I didn't know the full prophecy. I didn't know the descendant of Marie Bonaventure was supposed to become the second martyr.
And nobody told you, of course. Not Viva, not Pietro, and not even Chad until the very end.
It's unforgivable.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sure Chad didn't believe in the prophecy. He was just counting on the fact so many people in Eden did.
He was manipulating everyone.
I'm sure he saw no alternative.
But I think he was wrong to use Jody the way he did, to make it appear that the prophecy came true.
Chad thought it was worth the trouble. I agreed with him. And yes, of course, I was scared when he told me about the archer.
Well, then you should have refused. What if the archer wasn't as expert as he thought he was? Or what if the dress hadn't worked?
It did, didn't it? Besides, that's the way stuntmen get shot in the movies.
Oh, Jody, what's going to happen when everyone finds out it's not true, that you weren't even hurt? What then?
I think Chad hopes the people will be fooled long enough for the government to fall.
How is Chad? He looked really pale when I saw him.
Well, he's lost quite a bit of blood. I'm going to try to convince him to go to the hospital now that this is all over.
You know, I'd like to go see him.
No, why don't you just take it easy?
Gavin, please, I'm all right. Try to understand.
I do, Jody.
Come on, Jody, I'll show you where his room is.
Thanks.
You know what Jody said in her speech about not being brave or noble or any of those things? I think she was wrong. Don't you?
Jody.
Hi.
You all right? You weren't hurt?
I'm fine. It's all over. I'm fine. I just don't know if it's going to work.
It will. They told me you were wonderful, that you really said it all. I'll always be grateful to you. I just hope one day you won't hate me for what I did.
Hate you? Why should I hate you? It was my own choice, my own free will.
No, Jody, it wasn't.
Well, yeah, it was. Well, I know it took me a long time to realize it, but once I did, I took on the responsibility.
That's just the point. It wasn't your responsibility.
Well, I thought it was, since I'm the descendant of Marie Bonaventure.
No, Jody, you're not.
Why are you saying this now? Why are you lying? What are you trying to do? Free me from all of this so I won't get hurt?
I'm saying it because it's true. You're not a descendant of the martyr, any more than your mother was.
I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Well, you're hearing the truth now, and it's about time. Your mother had no blood ties with Eden. The closest she came to it was a lover named John Esterhazy. And he was a man who lived by his wits, as they used to say. A con man, a card cheat, and unfortunately, a descendant of the royal family of Eden after they settled here.
This man knew my mother?
Well, he spotted her one day in a restaurant or bar or someplace like that, and he noticed the resemblance to the old portrait of the martyr.
So the resemblance was just a coincidence.
Nothing more than that. But Mr. Esterhazy thought it might be profitable if he convinced your mother that she was more than she appeared to be.
Oh, nice thing to do.
I know, he was a scoundrel. But I can't claim to be much more since I've done the same thing.
What did this man think he was going to gain by telling my mother this?
Well, he knew she'd be a threat to any regime in Eden, and he was blackmailing them, making them pay for your mother's silence.
Oh, my God.
Of course, anybody who knew Mr. Esterhazy knew your mother was a fraud, but they feared him just the same, and they paid him his money until one day he had an accident.
The way you say that,
Well, I don't think it was an accident at all. Esterhazy was killed in a fall.
just like Mrs. Ingersoll.
Who?
My mother's neighbor, the woman who found the painting in the basement.
I put it there.
You what?
Your mother never had a portrait of Marie Bonaventure. I painted it. I made it look old. You see, there's aging techniques that forgers use all the time, and, well, I did one other thing. I made sure that face looked like yours.
So then you knew about me.
Well, I knew your mother had a daughter, and I started watching you long before we met at the Endicott party.
Well, I have to hand it to you. You really had this thing all planned, didn't you?
No, I just started things happening. Remember I told you about that anonymous message I sent to Viva and Pietro, telling them about you and the portrait in your apartment? They made up their own minds as to who you were, and they needed you, and I needed you too.
I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to laugh or cry or what.
I can't tell you how hard it was knowing that I was putting you in danger, feeling how I did about you. I almost called it off 100 times.
Well, I'm glad you didn't. I mean, even if I'm not related to her, I felt like her, and it was a wonderful feeling.
It was a scary feeling. I know that. But believe me, Marie Bonaventure was no braver than you were here today.
You will excuse me?
Mr. Renaldo?
Chad, my boy, I've just had a telephone conversation with your father in Eden.
I'll bet he's real upset about the telecast.
Oh, it is far more important than this. It goes deeper, my boy. Your father has just tendered his resignation as president of Eden.
He what?
Your father resigned?
He has promised all his countrymen that before he leaves, he will purge the government of all the criminals and their accomplices. And he will see to it that every one of them are deposed. Including himself.
My God.
One more thing, my son. He instructed me to tell you his sincerest wish is that his beloved son perhaps would rejoin him in Eden, to be with him, to help him, to assist him in making right all the wrongdoings.
Introducing CLR.
You remembered me.
Of course I do, Mrs. Whitney.
However, you haven't kept up with her history. Geraldine is now Mrs. Saxon.
Oh, yes, I do recall now.
Yes, I've been widowed twice since I saw you last in Washington.
Do you remember when that was?
I think so. I think it was a dinner party at Colin and Tiffany's house in Georgetown.
I believe you're right. We lost fine presidential timber when your son died, Mrs. Saxon.
I lost a fine son, David. That's all I know.
Please, what would you like to drink?
I think sherry for me, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, scotch would be fine, thanks.
I'll take care of that.
David, I know the circumstances of your trip to Monticello. Is there any progress, or is that a question I shouldn't ask?
Well, it's not a government secret. All we know to date is a man calling himself George Foley is also calling himself an agent of the CEA.
Yes, Mr. Cameron thinks there might be some connection with the Fowler Wilcox case.
I should think you would be not at all pleased to be reminded of it.
You're right. I never had a job I disliked more than the one I had then, investigating a man of Wilcox's stature.
Then you feel satisfied that you reached the right conclusion?
We never really came to an official conclusion, Mrs. Carr.
Of course, there wasn't a published conclusion because of Wilcox's suicide.
You know, I still feel dreadful about that, even though I didn't know him very well.
We know his son.
I understand he's now on the Monticello police force.
Yes, he is, and happens to be one of the top officers.
Poor Damian. He'll never be able to forget what happened in Washington.
And probably doesn't like me very much. Well, I can't blame him for that.
Well, he loved his father. He trusted him.
So did a lot of other people, apparently. In fact, Geraldine told us something quite surprising the other day.
What was that?
Oh, you mean about Fowler's possible appointment as head of the CEA?
Did you know about that?
No, nothing at all. Are you sure of this, Mrs. Saxon?
Oh, yes, quite sure. It was told to me by a top government official. Fowler Wilcox was to be appointed head of espionage. Ha! Incredible, isn't it? Espionage was the very crime for which he was accused.
Mr. Cameron, you seem surprised.
Oh, I am. Of course, I was just a security officer in the State Department at the time. I didn't know what was going on higher up.
Would that have affected the outcome of your investigation?
I don't know. It does bother me. Because, well, it might mean that Wilcox had access to other information besides the documents we know he saw. Frankly, the idea is a bit scary. Mike, would you mind if I made a call?
No, of course not. There's a phone in my study, right through there.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Well, what was that all about?
I have no idea.
Geraldine, have you heard from Raven?
No, my dear, not a word. And I don't mind telling you. But I'm really rather upset by it at this point.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I suppose it's because it's a painful reminder of a previous holiday when Raven disappeared.
Oh, you mean during that scam against her?
Yes. I just hope this vacation turns out to be better than that one.
Something wrong, Howard. You must be. No wonder they took your license away from you.
They were welcome to it. I never enjoyed practicing medicine. Sick people are nasty and ill-tempered. So are you, George. Are you sure you're well?
I'm sick, all right. Sick of hearing nothing at all from that woman upstairs, no matter how many times you stick a needle in her arm.
You can always call in another specialist, George, if you can find one.
You're probably right. She doesn't give us any answers because she doesn't have any. Jefferson Brown did a good job of keeping secrets from her. The whole thing's been a waste of time.
He fooled the rest of the world. Why not his wife?
We've landed ourselves in a nice, pretty mess without any reason at all. And guess who has to clean it up?
I've already done all I'm supposed to do, George. The problem is in your hands. I'm going home.
Howard, wait a minute. Help me out.
Help you? How?
I can't just wake that woman up and send her home. I've got to get rid of her.
And you want my help?
Well, you're a doctor. You know how these things can be done.
As you just pointed out, George, I'm no longer a member of the profession. And if I were, I couldn't do what you're asking.
It's got to be done.
The Lord helps those who help themselves.
You're too drunk to help anybody.
Good night, George.
Wait a minute.
Right. I am not firm enough with Raven, but it's very difficult to do. She is not my own daughter.
Well, you treat her as a daughter. You certainly love her as a daughter. Now, that should give you some rights.
In my opinion, Raven feels the same about you, Geraldine. You are her entire family. In fact, you're the only person who might be able to influence her for the better.
It's a hopeless cause, Mike. How can you influence a natural force?
Well, now, wait. She lives in your house. Isn't that a right?
It certainly gives you the right to know when she leaves it or returns.
That's true enough.
Honey, it is really so easy to give advice and so difficult to take it, although I do think that Raven should be more responsible.
Oh, my dear, responsibility is something that Raven knows nothing about. However, I have high hopes for the future.
who help themselves. Not many people have the blessing of dying in their sleep.